Fridays for Future movement, and especially Greta. My name is Nicole, and I'm 30 years old. I live in Australia, and I'm an ecological scientist. There is nothing more in this world that I'd rather be doing right now than working on solutions to combat the climate crisis. But like millions of scientists the world over, and I cannot be more explicit when I say this, I am not at work. Despite there is an ecological crisis where we need all hands on deck and we need all scientists from all over the world to come together to fight for your futures, scientists are being ignored. So why is that, you ask? Why are we not at work? Because, for all intents and purposes, there is no work. When human beings experience a crisis, everyone gets to work. And when we are faced with a crisis that requires specialised training, specialised people go to work. So why, in an ecological crisis, is it not the same? Why won't those in power let us get to work? In Australia, countless environmental scientists simply cannot find work. The government has cut billions from scientific research, and funding for Australia is at an all-time low. I'm not an economist, but I'm pretty sure I know the reason why. So just take a look at my example that I've left in the comments. But basically, this can be reflected in the job market. If you were to search on Australia's national job listing website, seek.com.au, go on, give it a try on any given day, you would find as little as 180 advertised jobs in environmental science, and even less, 70 jobs in conservation. And these haven't even been broken down into position type yet. Now remember people, this is nationwide. Now compare that to new jobs in mining with a staggering 5,200 jobs and 11,000 jobs in business and accounting. I've included a graph in the comments if you'd like to have a look. This year, someone in their 50s asked me the question, why did you choose a profession where there is no work? As if this person was comparing my skills in ecological science to being an expert on 18th century French porcelain. In that moment, I realized one thing. Even in a crisis, ecological research is being ignored, where the vast majority of people do not even understand the connection between science and an ecological crisis. So to those who think the children should go back to school, what are you going to say to our governments to let scientists get to work? And if the government in power is watching this, we're in an ecological crisis, and I'm an ecological scientist. So no, I will not get a better job. And if that isn't enough to shock you, don't worry, it gets worse. The majority of these jobs in environmental science, including ecology, do not include higher research positions. And do you know what they represent? They represent precisely the types of positions that lead to the innovation and development of solutions to deal with real-world problems. Yes, that's right. This is the type of science that will help combat the climate emergency. Australia, and I speak to you specifically now, some of those who conduct higher research at universities are considered students who are barely paid a living wage. That is, if they're lucky enough to win the PhD scholarship lottery in the first place. And if you're lucky enough to have won the other lottery, the job market, and you think this will sway the scholarship criteria, you'd also be dead wrong. Because some universities are forced to only accept applicants with proven research experience. In science terms, this means have published. But this comes at a heavy price. And I cannot be more explicit when I say this. This is an impossible standard. Because a university cannot financially support you until you are accepted into a PhD. But in order to be accepted into a PhD, you must secure funding. And you must publish to be accepted into a PhD. So in order to conduct good science, you must essentially treat it as an unpaid job. And no one deserves to work that hard for free, especially not a scientist in an emergency situation. So if you're have an innovative idea to combat the climate emergency, your chances of being accepted to conduct this research is almost non-existent. At best, it is difficult to secure substantial funding for science in general, but even more difficult to secure it for environmental or an ecological science, making it almost impossible if you want to pursue a PhD in this area. But if my story is not enough, then there are others. I've been out of work for 2 years, and I'm a highly skilled ecological researcher. And like most ecological scientists, most of these skills have not been developed through paid work. I've wanted to pursue a PhD for some time now, but I've faced nothing but barriers. Some of those barriers are related to how my different brain works, because like Greta Thunberg, I am also neurodiverse, but most, if not all, are due to a lack of funding towards universities to support higher degrees in science. But I have a new and novel idea to combat the spread of new and emerging infectious blood-borne diseases, particularly malaria. A disease that, due to the climate emergency across the globe, is killing millions more people every year. And I think I can help. And I want to help more than anything. And more than anything, I just want to use my skills to try. The only thing that is missing from this equation is money. And my idea isn't just some self-deluded fantasy either, as I've already garnered the attention and support of several academics as well as a potential supervisor. In fact, I have proposed and written publications which addresses this idea and already have one of these manuscripts under review in a top journal. And once this paper is accepted, I'll be the lead author of the study. But even that is not enough to meet the government's impossible standards for funding in science, because there is not enough funding to go around. Remember when I talk about projects such as mine, like other projects funded in science, I'm talking about scientific innovation here, the type of science that is needed to fight for your future. I refuse to accept this, since we are in an ecological crisis and cannot spare the innovation of even a single scientist. So ask yourselves, if you thought you could make a real impact on the world, would you be silent to your cause? If you thought you could make a real impact, would you be silent with your gift? This is why I will not be silent anymore. And if you are someone who can support scientific research like mine, what are you waiting for? Take a chance. Take a chance on me. Every scientist deserves the opportunity to try, even if it ends in failure. Because all research is unique and every contribution is an original and useful contribution to science. Australia, your government doesn't care about your future. Children of today, your governments don't care about your future. And I won't be silent about this anymore. As a scientist, I don't want to give you hope. I want to give you the best chance at survival. But we are fighting a losing battle. We scientists, we are really fighting a losing battle. So to the powers that be, I say this: you have no right to do what you are doing. And if you had any sense, you would let scientists like myself get to work. Because if we're ever to combat this crisis, you need to let scientists do what we do best. You need to let us conduct science. You need to let us get to work.